What's going on, guys? This is Jacob with Bulldog Analytics, and today I want to talk about field parameters. Now, field parameters, what is that? It's a pretty hot feature in Power BI. I think most people are familiar with it, but even if you're familiar with it, I don't think that they're leveraged enough because of how useful and intuitive and powerful they are in your visuals. So if you don't know, field parameters basically allow you to, and the end user, to dynamically change the elements that are displayed in a visual. So whether it's a bar chart or a column chart or a matrix or a table or whatever, it basically allows the end user to change the quantitative measures exposed. So whether it's like a sales dollar or a margin dollar, you can decide. Or it also allows you to change the dimensional aspects of your visuals. So for example, like if you want to display it by category, or maybe you want to display it by some sort of granular account level, it kind of allows you to do that. And we'll look at an example here in a second. I'm going to do a second video after this one around how you can use this field parameter approach to dynamically change a hierarchy. So not just one field, but an entire hierarchy. And this comes in handy when building out matrix visuals, because you've got multiple elements in that first column where you can do a breakout, as many as you want, and you can use field parameters to define how the hierarchy appears. Anyways, let's go ahead and look at my screen, and we will get into this part one of how to use field parameters. All right, as you guys can see, I've got an example pulled up here for balance sheet insights. This is an example report with some dummy data I recently built. And the basic gist of it is that I've got this approach up here using field parameters where I can select the data displayed. So currently, as any balance sheet should, it's displaying the balance as of today. However, let's see what the activity year to date or prior year to date is for the associated accounts in the balance sheet. So I've allowed for that to be chosen up here. So if I select year to date activity, it's going to display the total dollars related to said account or account category over here, or I can look at prior year to date activity. So that's basically what I've got going on here. Maybe there's a better way to do this, but this is just for an example. Let's go ahead and click back to balance, and let's walk through how we do this. So basically, these field parameters are just groupings of either quantitative measures or different dimensional data within your model. So let's come up here to modeling. This is where the parameter features exist, and we're going to break out new parameter, click fields, and this is where we build our field parameter. So we're going to leave the variable adjust here to fields, and then let's name this balance sheet values, and we'll put parameter at the end there. And basically, like I said, we're just going to duplicate what we already did. So we'll do, I think it's this balance sheet sign correction. Basically, that's like a debit credit thing based on how it appears. And then, or no, let's do, because I think sign correction does an absolute value. So we'll just do the balance display there, and then we'll do year to date activity, which is year to date transactions, and then prior year transactions. And then I can click create, and as you see, it defaults to adding a slicer to this page. That's really always what I want to do, so I'll never uncheck that, and I can just format it from there. But one other thing I want to call out is likely you're going to want to change how the callouts appear in your slicer if the measure isn't named as you want it to appear to end users. So we can do that here in a second, or you can click in here and you can change it. So I'm going to just say balance, and I'll put a $sign in there. I'll do year-to-date activity with a $sign, and then I'll do prior year activity with a $sign, and we will click create. All right, and so since I had that slicer selection checked, you can see that it automatically creates my slicer here. We can format this as a tile as I have over there on the right, but I'll just leave it like this for now. And just for fun, let's turn off our slicer header. So these are our options as far as what data will be displayed, but we need to actually leverage the field parameter in a visual. So you'll see that we've got the names that we defined: balance, year-to-date activity, prior year-to-date activity. And if we go into the syntax of the field parameter, you'll see that basically what's occurring here is we're creating this calculated table of sorts, and it's wrapping the entire field parameter in these curly brackets, and then each element of our field parameter is with an open and closed parentheses. Now there's 3 elements within each, at least as it currently stands. More to come on the hierarchy piece here later, but we've got the name that we defined, and if we want to change it, we can just come here to change how it's displayed. We don't want to touch this. This is just defining the measure that we're referencing. And then lastly, this defines the order. So if we want to change the order starting from 0, we can manipulate that here at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. And I also always like to default this to a selection with a single select in the slicers so that it has to, force a selection so that it's not going to break any of the visuals. So since I've got balance at the top, that makes sense. And let's just update this visual here on the right. So we created this balance sheet values parameter right here. And let's go ahead and take out the existing value I have in the x-axis, and we'll replace it with what we just created. Awesome. And so now it's going to do the exact same thing I've already built here, but we're just kind of doing it for the video. But we've got balance displayed. If I click year-to-date activity, you'll see it dynamically changes, and then prior year-to-date activity, prior year total activity, and you see it in action there. So that's what's going on there. Let's talk about also dynamically changing the dimensional or qualitative data of within our visuals. So right now we've got these GL account data displayed, and it's a concatenation of the GL account number and the GL account name. Just for today's presentation, let's say maybe we just want to see one or the other. There's obviously going to be much better examples if I were working with a different model, such as if you wanted to break down data by product or customer or something like that, or date of some sort, like if it's a month, year, or something like that. But today we're just going to do it with the data I have available here in my finance model. So let's go ahead to modeling, and we'll do new parameter, field parameter, and we'll say balance sheet dim, and we'll say parameter, or to match how I have it, we'll do the underscore parameter. And here, with the quantitative stuff, we have to use a DAX measure, but with the dimensional stuff, that's not required. So let's just say from the account hierarchy detail table, I want to be able to say if I just want to look at the account number, or maybe I want to look at the name, or maybe I want to look at them together. I don't know if this actually would be a real life scenario. I don't think so, but it's going to get the point across. So we'll leave everything else the same and click create. All right, and it automatically created the slicer. Let's go ahead and shrink this one up so we've got a little room to work with. And we'll put this right next to the other one that we created. Take the header out. Force a selection under the slicer settings. All right, and again, these are just the default names. If I want to change them, I can click into the code here, and we'll just say account number, account name, account number and name. That's not great, but just showing that that functionality does define how the slicer outputs. So you can see that there. And now let's go ahead and replace the dimensional aspect of this cluster bar chart. So the GL account here on the y-axis, we'll replace it with our balance sheet dim parameter here. And you'll see there that it's displaying the account number only. What if we want to see name? We can click name. There you go. Or we want to see both. Boom. So obviously, like I said, there's going to be better instances. If you're looking at a sales report, you can break it down by customer, break it down by product, break it down by some sort of date field. But I think this kind of gets at how we can accomplish a lot using field parameters in our reporting. So hopefully you got a lot from this, and I've got another video around how we can do the same thing but using hierarchies. And I think that that's a really powerful option. So stick around and check out the next video. I'll see you next time.